Hello, everyone, and we're back at Survive, Thrive, and Triumph. So, Vicki and I were just having a quick little conversation as we were going over what we were going to talk about today, or actually what Vicki's going to be talking about today. And it's the first time in a long time where I've seen Vicki ready to pull out her hair because she's so frustrated with everybody. And now she knows what happened to me. So, anyway. Take it away, Vicki. It's all you.
All right. Well, today we're going to do things a little bit different. Where we're going to talk about PPP and all this stuff going on with the government, stimulus and the things going on there. But that's where I want to stop having to pull out my hair. And then we're going to just get in. We're going to get into things that we really work on with clients and some good stuff about just general business management and learning through this crisis, and how we want to see businesses come out of this and be stronger afterwards. And there's some good learnings, and some of the things that we do with clients we're going to share with you also, and we'll kind of see how our methodology works and some of the things that we focus on with clients.
So real quick, just so that everybody understands, Survive, Thrive, and Triumph, there's a specific process here. Survive, we're focusing in on cash flow, in other words, surviving the crisis and profitability. Thrive is where we adapt or die, we pivot, we help our clients determine new revenue streams, different ways of providing their deliverable. And Triumph is all about being stronger when the dust settles, so you can take advantage of all the opportunities that are going to be available, whether it's competitors that have gone down and haven't come back out through the crisis, and you'll be able to access their client base or go after their customer base, or it's just taking what you adapted or you pivoted in the Thrive portion and you start adding that to your business to make your business even stronger. So that's where Vicki's going to be taking us down those paths over the next few weeks.
So we'll continue to, keep you updated on PPP and all the government stuff, but then kind of pivot ourselves with the group so that we can be giving more, adding more value than, whether people are getting loans or not. So that we can all see everyone, be stronger at the end of this. So to start with PPP, we are definitely seeing more activity this time around on the smaller loans being granted and approved. So, what you're probably seeing on the news is the same thing, but we're actually seeing that with, the approvals and the deposits coming through on the smaller folks. So hopefully folks in our group are seeing that also. Let us know if you have. But it's still going. That somehow I'm shocked because I thought the money was going to be gone like within the day on Monday when it opened. But the SBA has been really controlling the process. They opened it overnight where it was only small banks could enter loans, and then they were allowing big banks to do certain things, all trying to level the playing field. So we're just hoping that for all those that were pending and had done everything right, that it all comes to fruition for those folks.
But a lot of them are smaller loans, like you've been saying. Right. So it's not the ones where it's $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. These are $100,000. I mean, for the most part, what we're understanding is the majority of the loans here are $100,000 and less. And so therefore, it's going to take a lot of those to cobble together to get to 350 billion or whatever the number is. So that's why I think it's lasted a little longer than.
And even the actual, so if they submit to the SBA, and then a lot of them the banks are waiting for SBA approval. So the approval process is taking longer because the volume of the actual number of loans getting submitted is so much greater. So it's not the dollar amount of each, but the volume of the individual loan. So for example, Bank of America, who no one was hearing from in the first round, and the beginning of the second round, they've uploaded 184,000 applications to the SBA. And they are starting to get finalized. They're actually sending out emails notifying that they've been submitted. Emails are starting to come out that they've been approved. And take some time for the SBA to just cycle through those 184,000, and then that's happening across the board with a lot of banks. So the good thing is, folks that were with Bank of America and Chase are actually starting to hear from them. So they had been like, no one else, and it actually forced people to go elsewhere, which probably, is backing up the system also, because there's the same EINs going in for loans. But, people, anyway, they're starting to hear from Bank of America and Chase, which is a good thing.
Well, just so you know, our clients haven't heard, as you know, PNC and Wells, we still haven't heard anything. We're up in the air. Actually, I shouldn't say that. One PNC, we got an email for one of our non-profs where Marcia said that they got an email saying it's already been submitted to the SBA. But two other ones at PNC we haven't heard on, and the two at Wells, we've heard nothing except their robo emails 5 times a day saying the same thing. But going back to the point of that 184,000 loan applications, even if they're averaging $100,000 or the maximum is 100,000, that's $18.4 billion in loan payment in the loans that would be going out. So that's not even 10% of the amount of the stimulus package.
So what I had heard yesterday was that they felt that whoever had been in the queue prior to it opening on Monday and then got in Monday, Tuesday-ish will probably be funded. Now, no one can bank on that, right? Who knows, right? So there's all these things that the SBA is doing on a daily basis, reconfiguring their systems and the process, so definitely can't bank on that. But that's what the overarching, because of the smaller dollar amounts are going to go further. That's what we kind of heard out in the world. So that would be a good thing. So if you haven't heard anything yet, or you just kind of got one of the robo emails and haven't heard since, there is a reason why this is taking longer, and it kind of makes sense as to why it's taking longer. So hang in there, and hopefully there's going to be good news at the end of this.
I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but anybody in our group, if you happen to get an email that says you weren't able to get it because funds have been totally used up, please post so that everybody knows that, and everybody can then make the appropriate plans or shifts in their plans. And we'll post anything that we find out, obviously, but if you guys find anything out, because we got people scattered all over the country in the group. So
in the meantime, we, today we're posting a couple of things about forgiveness, a little more details on what certain things mean and what's going to be looked for. Tomorrow, we're actually going to post a really detailed Excel forgiveness tracker where you can actually track all your expenses. I think it's on a daily basis, by week, just to be overly, overdoing it on the documentation side, because there still is a lot of unknowns on forgiveness. I was listening to a banker this morning. It's a banker called CPAs, and one of the things that he was saying, and obviously this is from his perspective, a bank, is concerned how all of this is going to roll out. The banker was saying they're actually concerned about the forgiveness part of this, that the SBA or the Treasury is going to kind of, after this is all done and they realize the amount of money that they truly paid out, that they are going to make forgiveness harder. Now, that may be just big loans, I don't think they're going to try to hurt the little guys, but I thought it was interesting that he actually said that, because this in the beginning was like, oh yeah, there's like nothing to worry about with forgiveness. So I just think we need to all, the best advice to give is just be overly cautious in your documentation, your usage, follow it to a T. Don't make any assumptions that there's going to be flexibility in this. Follow it to a T. And if you have to track by day, like our tracker is going to give you tomorrow, just do it, because you don't want to end up with a loan at the end of this.
Absolutely. And I had a conversation, an off-the-record conversation yesterday evening with one of our banking relationships, and he was telling me the same thing. He believes that what's going to end up happening is the SBA is going to micromanage everything, and anything that they can find to say that it's not forgiven, it's not going to be forgiven. And then the bank is going to be left holding the bag with this and having to hold these loans for a total of 2 years. And there may not even be an SBA guarantee if there's a default on it. It's not even so much the forgiveness aspect that the banks are really worried about. It's more, at least this banker is more concerned about the guarantee portion.
Right.
Because they did, as bankers say, this was a fog on mirror loan. It wasn't a underwritten loan. So basically, if you could stand up and breathe and create fog on a mirror, you're getting the loan. So there was no underwriting process, no nothing, and that's what they're concerned. They're more concerned about the faults than the forgiveness side of it.
Yeah. So the point, the specific words used were, on the forgiveness side was, he believes the feds are going to realize they got in over their heads, which is a little concerning. And the reason why he's saying this is, there's still lack of clarity on how to apply for forgiveness, right? So a lot of us in this group, a lot of the folks in this group are still waiting to see if they got PPP, but there's businesses that got it several weeks ago. So, for them to be they're tracking and trying to track with no guidelines really whatsoever besides 75%, 25%, and some little details from the original bill. He's afraid that the rules are just going to change midway through. So it's just going to change. And there's no reason to say that it's not, or that can never happen, because they have been changing all along. And he's even made the point the regulations are changing every day. So, and that's from a banker's perspective. We're seeing it from the, accounting world, CFO world. So it definitely is a concern. So the more you can do on the tracking side, certainly better. And, the other piece that I just wanted to bring up was the combination of EIDL and PPP. So when these programs were first launched, EIDL was supposed to be a $10,000 advance of grant, and PPP was a separate program. Then we started seeing that, well, if you got an advance and you applied for PPP, you have to kind of integrate those two and subtract from the loan you're trying to get, subtract the EIDL advance. Then the EIDL changed to $1,000 per employee. So there's a lot of deposits that are going into people's bank accounts for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, very small amounts. Right now, because the time, especially because of this timing where the EIDL is coming into folks' accounts now, and the PPP is coming in now, it's looking like that integration of the two are going to be paid more attention to than we originally thought. And originally they were saying, well, if you use EIDL for certain expenses that aren't PPP related, then it's two separate things. And now it's coming down that it's not, that you have to take your EIDL advance into consideration with the PPP for forgiveness. So what doesn't make sense is that if you get forgiven, your loan gets forgiven, but your advance was $2,000, what are they going to do with that $2,000? Is the bank going to say, oh, that piece isn't forgiven, so it's a loan? Is that the bank going to say you have to pay it back? Is the SBA going to say there's no specific guidelines on it? So I'm just bringing it up not to make people concerned or upset, but just to know that the way this is all rolling out and the timing, there could be something on the back end that says, you need, if you got the EIDL advance, that you need to subtract it from the loan forgiveness. So we will keep everyone posted when we have the exact information and guidance, but that's kind of trickling out there, and we just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have anything to say to that. I'm just like, I'm so past it all at this point. It's like, just tell us what it is that we need to do, how to conduct ourselves, and how to properly advise our clients, and so business owners know what they can do, what they can't do, and let's just move on. I'm getting tired of the constant changes or the lack of information, and then they drop this information, and then 2 weeks later it changes. it just, I'm so passive. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to wait till the banks that we're working with for our clients say, okay, here's the form, here's the Excel spreadsheet, plug in the numbers. If you got an EIDL loan, how much, or an EIDL grant, advance, whatever you want to call it, pop the number in here, and it's going to subtract out. What I think is going to happen is it's going to subtract out, and that part of the PPP loan is not going to be forgiven, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, and it's going to be left up to the banks to amortize these $1,000, $2,000 loans for 18 months at 1% and have to service it. And it's going to really tick these banks off because they're already losing money on every single one of these deals, and they're losing opportunity costs.
So based on that, the ridiculousness of servicing it, I'm hoping that something will change. So being things change every day, I'm hoping that something will change, especially for the smaller loans. It just doesn't make sense, and it also goes against this trying to get help out as quickly as possible. That is what they were doing. So don't now take it back. Which is,
there's a word for it in Greek that means silliness and craziness, but it sounds better in Greek. So anyway.
Okay. So like we said in the beginning, we're going to shift our conversation for a little bit today, and we're going to do this each day. And we're going to shift to, more to the business management side of things and running your business and making things better. So I'm going to share my screen. This is a visual of kind of the way we work with companies through any of our methodologies, whether you're working with us one-on-one or you're working with us in a group program or in any of our, we have our Survive, Thrive, Triumph, which we've talked about, and we also have our Profit Growth Scale program. So this is essentially our methodology, and we do a lot around these things, but what's at the heart of this is, there's 4 key components to running your business and growing it and making it valuable. And right at the heart of that is how you're managing it as the CEO. We talk about becoming the uppercase CEO versus the lowercase chief everything officer, and really taking that step back in managing the business, not working, when you hear the term working on your business, not in your business. That's at the core of everything. But then we also focus very much, we focus on shuffling through the key components here of, a healthy business. So cash flow, profit margins, and growth. And depending on where you're starting from, you may start with different ones, but it's a cyclical process that we go through. We get your cash flow in order, we get your margins looking good, then it's time to grow. And then once you start growing, you got to go back to fix cash flow a little bit. But it's just this circular process that we go through with our clients, and it really works. So we wanted to just kind of use this as a talking point over the next several weeks, just to give folks ideas, things to be pondering and thinking about as we're coming out of this pandemic and things are starting to open up and you have some new opportunities to run your business differently. So we're just looking at cash flow as a starting point here. We hear how folks, the typical American lives paycheck to paycheck. And when they look at how businesses are being managed, it's essentially the same thing. So most businesses have 2 weeks worth of cash flow, which is, I think we saw that was apparent with the restaurants and the businesses that weren't necessarily completely shut down because of COVID, but shut down very quickly because they couldn't afford to pay their employees if revenue didn't immediately come in. Then there's another subset of that where the business has about 2 to maybe 6 weeks of cash available to pull from in case of emergency. But the majority of businesses do not have more than that. So we're in this situation with the pandemic, which is horrible, and businesses are going out of business because they're getting forced to shut down, and there's all sorts of reasons around that on the health concern side of it. But when you really dig deep as to why this is happening, why it happened so quickly, much of it is the mismanagement of cash, not understanding your numbers, not really ever having been profitable all along. And that having gone on for years, and the way the company was being managed was not in a healthy way.
And it's not mismanagement in a nefarious way. It's mismanagement for lack of understanding how to manage cash and how important. Everybody talks cash is king, and they talk the big game, but it's all, I realize that it's all just talk. Very few people really understand how to manage their cash flow. And so that's where we come into this, and we always start with cash flow, because if you don't stabilize your cash flow, you're never going to recognize your profitability, because profitability is over a period of time. So profitability has to come after the cash flow has been stabilized. And just so everybody understands, the reason why growth is the third step is because if you don't have your margins or your profitability in order, if you grow, then all you're going to do is replicate bad margins. And it's not going to be good growth. It's not going to be smart growth. And so therefore, there's a specific order that we follow, and it's stabilize cash flow, solidify margins, and execute controlled growth.
So one great example that I just wanted to share with everyone, because it's just a fantastic example. A client, that had come on board with cash flow issues and profitability issues for several years. It was apparent that they were overstaffed. So looking at the numbers, it was just obvious they were overstaffed. There was inefficiencies. It was a project-based business that then went primarily to a retainer-based structure. And this new program that they put in place to manage retainers was actually causing even more inefficiency in people. But it was very apparent when we dug into what was going on a project or retainer basis. And it was very much about people and the fact they were overstaffed. So those expenses were too high, and it was bringing down the profit margins. But then they were building, they were in growth, they thought they were in growth mode, so they would, bring on a new big client. And then that automatically, in their mind, equated to, we need to bring on another person or more to manage that new client. So although their revenue was growing, their margins were actually going down because they were bringing on even more expense than the revenue called for. So, there was just this issue of people costs that just, they dealt with it for years and years. So every month you would look at their profit and loss, and like one month it would look good, there'd be a little bit of a profit. The next month there would be a little bit of a loss. And it was just this game that went on for years with a cash crunch every single month because of it. A lot of stress, just a lot of emotions as part of it, as well as, just not wanting to pull the trigger or address the fact that there was a people issue. So in March, this pandemic is starting. This was a marketing agency where, marketing is probably one of the first things that get cut if, suddenly a company, not that it should be, but that a company suddenly needs to conserve cash, they cut their marketing budget. And they realize, oh no, this could cause us a major problem. We need to pull the trigger on something. So the decision was, with our assistants, was to just make a slight change, furlough the employees just one day a week. And everyone was actually happy with that, because everyone at this point was worried that they're going to lose their job completely. So just that one day a week, bring everybody to 4 days a week of work. So essentially that was addressing the people issue that they've had all along. Now, their revenue in the month of April suffered a tiny bit. It did go down. But their profit margin now is higher than it has ever been. And they function fine. So out of fear of this pandemic, they made that hard decision that they were not willing to make over years and years. And they suffered because they didn't make that decision. And they finally got a pandemic to make the decision for them. They pulled the trigger, and they had their most profitable month in the middle of a pandemic. So, obviously they were overstaffed, but for them to really, just took them so long to address it and really do something about it. And it just goes to show one trigger can, flip one switch. And that maybe was one person's salary to really look at the 4 days of the furlough. And it made a huge, huge difference. So I think it'll be easier to have conversations going forward with this client because they're seeing, wow, like this saved the day, and they could have done it a long time ago.
Yep. And like most business owners, like you said at the very beginning, most business owners think growth is the panacea, that increased sales is going to solve all the problems of the business. And in reality, it's not always going to do that, especially if your margins aren't good or where they need to be. You're not efficient and you're not profitable. All it's going to do is highlight the fact that your margins are not good or you're inefficient as a company. So that's why it's not always the best thing to do is, let's say, increase sales. There's other things that can happen, but you need to keep sales steady. And so you always need to have business development going. And I firmly believe that that's one of the 5 pillars of a business is business development. And you've got to keep that going, but you don't necessarily grow out of control, or like we like to say, either out of control or unintelligently, or you want to grow smart and you want to grow in a controlled fashion. So
yeah, we're trying to take this time period and now, put this positive spin, the silver lining, the ability to take that step back in your business, maybe make some drastic changes that you didn't want to make before, but now this kind of gives you, not the excuse, but like the leverage that, okay, I need to shift and pivot and go in a different direction and really make these changes so that when you all come out of this and the economy starts opening, as it's sort of starting in different places, you really can come out as a stronger business. But you can't lose sight of these key, these critical things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So we'll keep having these conversations and taking everybody through some of this stuff because it's important. So if you have any questions on these concepts, let us know. Comment
in the group or go to or shoot us an email at getresults@resultscfo.com and we'll follow up with you. So
absolutely.
Again, thank you, Vicki, for all your sage wisdom and your sage advice and all the research that you're doing to keep everybody informed. And internally, it has been a godsend to have you as this PPP, EIDL, coronavirus, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, expert in our midst for our clients to be able to pull that from that resource that you've become. That's just been a godsend, as they say. So everybody, stay safe and keep your distance. And we'll talk next week. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.